A very good morning to everybody, and you all are welcome in this second season of your webinar presentations. In this season, you are going to make a presentation on 20th century literature, by and large on 20th century literature, wherein your course content is divided between Second World War and post Second World War literature. And along with that, you also have a paper on American literature, wherein also you study 20th century American literature. And one course is on literary theory and criticism. And in this semester, you have studied Indian and Western literary theories and criticism. So we hope that we are going to have a very good season of presentations from your side. Today in this session, we will have presentations by Aditi, Anjali, Bhavyang, Bhumika, Chandani, Daya, Hiral, Jignesh, and Khushbu. And you are going to make presentations in this morning slot on 21st century English literature, which was up till Second World War. And in the post-lunch session, you are going to make presentations on literatures which were published after Second World War. Okay? And a kind of a reminder to everybody that what you are supposed to do in this season, along with your presentations in an online mode, in this webinar mode, you are also supposed to make you're supposed to submit your presentations in Google Classroom, which I think all of you might have done. And I'm seeing that most of you from this slot have submitted their presentations here. And you are given a rubric, and based on the rubric, you are going to be evaluated. So the rubric also is well known to you, and you might have access rubric to improve your performance, even in the last season also. And in this season also, you will work on your rubric so that you can make further presentations, also further improvement in your presentations. You have to do peer and self-evaluation also. You are supposed to do peer and self-evaluation of your presentations. And for that, we have given an online form. An online form is linked on this blog, where you are supposed to give every day. You have to give an evaluation of yourself, as well as the students who are making presentation in your slot also. So do not forget, every day while the presentations are going on, keep a pen and paper handy so you can mark their grades, and then later on when the slot is ending, you are supposed to go online and mark the presentations. Okay. And yes, you have to ask questions also. Two students before the presenter in roll number will ask one question each. Two students before the roll number. The student after the roll number will be ready for the next presentation, and two students before the roll number, the presenter's roll number, will be ready to ask two questions. If you are running short of time, we will ask you to put your question in chat, and you have to answer in the chat. Otherwise, we will have a live question. When you ask question, you have to keep your camera on. When you make presentations, you have to keep your camera on. Okay. And during the session also, if you keep your camera on, it will be always a welcome. But in case data is a problem, then you can switch off your camera when you are not speaking anything. Okay? Okay, so first presenter of the day is Aditi. Yes, Aditi, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, so you can start your presentation.
Okay, sir. I will share my screen. My screen is visible, sir?
Yes, it is visible.
Yes. Hello, good morning, everyone. Today I would like to present stream
Yes,
of
yes,
consciousness.
Aditi. Yeah, hide this sticker. Hide the sticker at the bottom. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Now I will start.
Yes, you can start.
Okay. Today I would like to present stream of consciousness in Virginia Woolf Orlando. First of all, we can discuss about basic details about Virginia Woolf. Virginia Woolf is one of the most prominent literary figures of the 20th century. Virginia Woolf wrote many works and his famous work is like M.S. Dalloway written in 1925 to the Lycurgus written in 1927, The Voyage Out written in 1915. The Orlando is her most famous work and it is written in 1928. The Waves written in 1931. Now here we can see what is Virginia Woolf's style. Virginia Woolf written in mostly three styles. First, stream of consciousness. Second, poetic presentational technique. The third is the formal use of silence. In a novel, Virginia Woolf beginning a narrative to a more stream of consciousness style, and Virginia Woolf operate thoughts thoughts like vivid, picturesque, colorful, flamboyant, lucid, copious, florid, and fanciful style. In stream of consciousness is a literary technique used by Richardson, Virginia Woolf, and James Joyce. Virginia Woolf used the characterized by a flow of thoughts and imagination, and mostly Virginia Woolf's thoughts flow without control, maintains logical and grammatical organization. In stream of consciousness, the continuous flow of thoughts, feelings, and memories. Sometimes stream of consciousness is known as the internal monologue. And we can see stream of consciousness shows and individual points of view. And in stream of consciousness, the mostly writer use the informal language. Stream of consciousness Virginia Woolf used uniqueness begins with an attempt to render the flow and the play of consciousness adrift in the current of changing impressions. William, William James, in his Principle of Psychology, he is described the unbroken flow of perceptions, thoughts, and feelings in the working mind. And mostly writers use the long passages of introspection in stream of consciousness. In stream of consciousness used in Orlando. Virginia, Virginia Woolf stream of consciousness writing mirrors the thoughts of Orlando, her protagonist. In this novel, the scenes where Orlando goes up to her tree, look back at Dead Queen and heralds the return of her husband, may be a product of her imagination. In Virginia Woolf's Orlando, we can see a story told in chronological order. The concept, the concept emerges as Orlando's ever-changing thoughts are witnessed in the author and other ideas. At the end, I would like to say Virginia Woolf's individualized and experimental art of fiction has offered a significant fiction but also in literary creation. Virginia Woolf is a best writer, and whenever she is writing her stream of consciousness in novel. Here is my reference, and thank you everyone.
Okay, fine. You can stop presenting. And the questions from Khushbu and Jignesh.
Hello, Didi.
Yes.
My question is for you. That who started the tradition of stream of consciousness in the novel?
Many of the novelists starts this concept in novel, mostly Richardson, Virginia Woolf, and Prominent, and other many novelists start this style, and many novelists used it in his depth analysis to describe the unspoken thoughts and conventional dialogues.
Aditi, my question is, what is the purpose of stream of consciousness writing?
Yes, Vishnu. Stream of consciousness writing allows authors to provide a more intimate portrait of their subjects, and it prevents them from being confined to physical description or accounts of spoken dialogues.
Thank you, Aditi.
Yes, good. Good questions and also well explained answers. Okay. Okay, our next presenter is Anjali.
Yes, sir. Hello. Hello.
Your voice is not audible, Anjali.
Hello. Now
Very
clear?
low voice. Yes, now we are getting your voice. It is very low. Yeah.
Hello. Now audible, sir?
Yes, now audible. Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. I request to, hello, good morning to everyone. I request to Daya share my screen, please.
Yes, I am sharing my screen.
Yeah. The screen is half, Daya.
Is it not visible, sir?
Yeah, it is visible. Yes, visible now. Yeah.
But sir, for
So,
me not visible.
No, here it is visible. Yeah, the screen we are able to see. So you can start presenting if you have the content
No,
there.
but I'm not clearly visible, sir.
Maybe that is because of your network issue. But here we are able to see the screen.
Sir, I see just half screen.
No, here it is full. This is the second slide. Yeah, it is full available. Yeah. But you might have taken some notes in paper. So read from that. The slides will keep on changing. That is what we have instructed. That keep handy
Sir, just a
something.
minute.
So from that you don't have to, as a presenter, you don't have to refer to the slides. Slides are for the viewers. Slides are not for the speakers. In presentation,
Hello.
keep this in mind, everybody. When you prepare slides, slides are not for you. Slides are for the audience. You have to speak from your own notes or orally or oral. Remember this tip always. Yes, yeah.
I'm sharing my own second on screen. In second device, I'm sharing my screen, sir.
Yes, you can. Yeah. No, you can just read from your second device. Why are you sharing from that? Here it will. We will see this. You see that. Yeah.
Sir, but in
You
the
read from your second device. You don't share from the second device. Yeah? We will watch this that is shared here. Yeah?
Just a minute, sir. Just.
Yeah, you just keep on telling next slide, next slide. So the slides will keep on changing.
Okay, sir.
Yes, you can start from your second device. You can start reading from your second device.
Sir,
Yes.
I have some issue, sir. Just a minute. I can next presentation give. I can
Okay,
give next.
fine. Okay, yeah, we'll coming back to you. Let us take the presentation of Bhavyang. Yes, Bhavyang.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yeah.
I'm sharing my screen. It is visible?
Yes, it is visible. You hide your sticker about, yeah, okay. Now you can start.
Okay, good morning everyone. I am Asari Bhavyang and today's my topic is about what does the green light mean in the novel Great Gatsby. First we will say about the F. Scott Fitzgerald. He was born in 24 September 1896 and he died at 21st December 1940. And he was an American novelist, essayist, screenwriter, and short story writer. He was famous for his novel. He published four novel and 164 short stories. And here we can see his important work like The Side of Paradise, The Great Gatsby, Tender in the Night, the Crack Up, the Last Tycoon. The Great Gatsby. It is set in the jazz age, a term popularized by the Fitzgerald. It captured the prosperity of the post-war America, filled with jazz music and illegal alcohol. A story about the promise and failure of the American dream. It's centered around the character of the Gatsby, a young man who raised from a rag to riches, and his love for a wealthy young woman. It was unsuccessful when it was first published. The novel, however, was rediscovered a few year after Fitzgerald died, and grew in a popularity, becoming a standard text of higher school. It is now considered a masterpiece of American fiction. And the light mean the green light is associated with the wealth, growth, spring, etc. It is also used to convey envy. Gatsby is the showing to be an envious character, as he is jealous of the fact that Daisy belonged to another man. Green is also used to represent the power of money, which Gatsby has plenty of. In the beginning, the lights stand for Gatsby dream, hope, and desire to reunite with Daisy and recapture their love. This positive association connect with the color green. One of the most memorable image, the Great Gatsby, is the green light that Gatsby watches across the water, which simultaneously symbolize the Gatsby's love for Daisy, money, and the American dream. The green light. The green light in chapter number 1. This is the paragraph which I have taken from the Great Gatsby. And this paragraph talk about the green light signifies a hope for J. Gatsby. It represents his desire for Daisy, who is his true love, that will one day return to him. It also represents a longing and desire. It symbolizes the hope, because Gatsby look at the end of his dock and hopes that one day Daisy will return to him. The green light in the chapter number 5. We return to the image of the light exactly halfway through the novel. In the 5th chapter, when Gatsby is showing the Daisy around his mansion after he's accidentally run into her at a Nick house, and this is a paragraph which I have taken from the novel. The appearance of the green light is important as the first one, because the way the light is present now is totally different than when the first show it instead the enchanted magical we first saw. Now the light has its symbolical meaning removed from it. This is because the Gatsby is now actually standing there and touching Daisy herself. So he no longer need to stretch her arm out towards the light or a worry. It separates of the green light from its symbolical meaning. It somehow sad and troubling. Gatsby ignores Daisy putting her arm through his, because he is absorbed in a thought that the green light is now just a regular thing. Nick observes that Gatsby enchanting objects are down. One sound like a lament. How many enchanted objects are there in anyone's life? And at the end, we can at the end of the novel we can see the green light. This paragraph I have taken from the at the end of the novel. Green light again. He compares it to what American must have must have looked like before settled had tore down the tree and built a site, just a fresh green breast of the new world. Both the green light and the land represent the American dream. The green light is Daisy, Gatsby American dream, and a new land is American dream of the new settled, the greatest of the human dream. This also falls under a color symbolized for a green, hope and promise, as well as a new beginning. The green light is a Gatsby's mind, represent a new beginning for the Gatsby and Daisy. The green land represent a new beginning for the Dutch sailor. That the American dream is unnetted at the green light at the end of the dock is evidenced by the aftermath of the car crash. The several of the climate of the novel as a several of the crash, the three characters from the lower class background, Gatsby, Martel, and George, died, while the upper class character of the Nick, Daisy, Tom, and Jordan survived. Tom and Daisy, who were born into the privilege, remain insult from the negative consequences of their action. Here we can see the Fitzgerald critic of the America dream reach its apex, and he implied that although working class people can circulate with the upper class, they will ultimately be expendable, while the upper class will carelessly maintain their own dominance. And at the end of the novel, Fitzgerald writes, Gatsby be the green light, the orgastic future that year by year recedes before us. It eludes us, and then, but that no matter to stretch out our arms further. This description shows that the American dream, most important quality is its innecessity. A dream is not a reality. This is a reference from which I have made a presentation. Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, show your slide about this previous third slide. Yeah, before. Yeah, okay, this slide. Yeah, this is good. Yeah. Bhavyang has made a very good presentation with the symbol of green light, and in a very interesting way he has seen this symbol. Also the color of green color, which is also symbolic of envy. Envy, that also is very well taken, is envious also. And apart from that, he also referred positively the light as the dream. And this is very important point which Fitzgerald makes against American dream, against American dream, which like in all societies, these kind of dreams are true only for rich people, super rich people, or the people who are the elite people at the top of the pyramid. In all social structures, there are few people at the top of the pyramid. The way these top people can get the benefit of everything that happens in society, the people at the bottom of the pyramid, they rarely get those chances. Even if somebody from the bottom becomes rich and climbs, and also ultimately when the crash happens, when the shattering happens, it is these people who will fall down from the top of the pyramid also. So this is a very interesting, that when the car crash happens or the shattering of things, shattering of glasses, liquor glass, that when that happens, what we see is that it is not only things and cars, it is not only things and cars, but it is human beings also. The people coming from lower class, Gatsby, Jay Gatsby, Martel, George, they have to die. They have to die at the end of the novel. And upper class characters like Nick, Daisy, Tom, Jordan, they will survive. They will survive ashes or all kinds of shattering also. So born into privilege, this is insulated. You are protected because you are born into an elite class. You normally are protected. This is a very interesting insight which Fitzgerald has presented in this novel here. Okay, fine. Well presented. Yeah, you have given citations also. Yeah, show the last slide. Last slide. Yes, quotes from the original text also is appreciated. You have put quotations from the original text. That is a good sign, yeah, which everybody should follow. Yeah. And he has given this citations also. I think F. Scott in Fitzgerald. I think you'll have to give it Fitzgerald, comma F. Scott. Alphabetically, it will be like that. Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay, so it is good to see that you have cited from the text and other things also. Yeah, you can stop sharing now. And Anjali, your questions?
Yes. What does the green light symbolize? Okay.
It is symbolize the Gatsby's love for the money and the American dream. It is a symbolized of a hope, of a dream. By the end, Gatsby is watching nothing.
Yes, Aditi.
Yes, my question is, what does green light represent?
It represent about a power of a money which Gatsby has.
Okay, fine. Yeah, the next presenter is Bhumika.
Sir, I'm ready, sir.
You are ready, Anjali? Are you ready?
Hello. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
fine. Then you can start. Yeah, Anjali, you can start.
Okay, sir. Shall I?
Yes, yeah.
My screen is visible.
Yes, visible.
My screen is visible. Okay. Good morning to everyone. Today I'm presenting about the Westland, Westland T.S. Eliot. Introduction. The T.S. Eliot, the Thomas Stream Eliot was born in the St. Louis, Missouri on the September 26, 1888. Is the first book of the poem. The Prophet and other observation was in the 1970, and he was immediately established him as a leading poet in avant-garde As a poet, he is a transmitted. He is a affinity. He is a affinity for the English metaphysical poet of the 17th century. His poem, in a many representative the articulated the disillusionment of the younger poets of the World War First generation with the convention, both literary and the social of the Victorian era. T.S. Eliot received the Nobel Prize for Literature in the 1948. He died in London in a January 4, 1965. The Westland, it's an epic poem. A poem made of the college of the images, the Westland image of the symbol take in the city life. T.S. Eliot represents the city life. People living style. Eliot use complex language and also use the mythical technique in the Westland poem. The design in the five parts. The five parts like the barrier of the dead, a game of the chess, the first the fire sermon, death by water, and what the thunder says. The first part of the poem is the burial of the dead. The poem speakers talk about how the spring is a horrible time of year, streaming up memories and the bygone days in the unfulfilled desire. Here are some of the lines of the first part. That in the line, unknown speaker claims that April is the cruelest month, even though we might usually think of the spring as a time of love. In this section, the title from a line in the Anglican burial service. This recollection from the Avengers, the operatic version in the Tristan, and the isolation of the Arthurian take of the adultery and the loss. And the second part, the game of the chess. This section takes is a title from two plays by the early 17th century playwright Thomas Middleton. In the one of the which was a move in a game of the chess, denotes stage in the seduction. Here some of the line of the second part. This part opened with the description of the woman sitting inside a really expensive room. Eliot vividly paint in the picture of the someone sitting on the bank on the famous Thames River in London. Although Eliot is able to produce starting the beautiful poetry from the rough pitch of the woman in a bar, he nevertheless present there the conversation as a reason for pessimism. Here, third part, the fire sermon. The title of this the longest section of the poem. This part starts with this line: the river stand the broken and the last of the leaf, the clutch and the sink into the wet bank and the vine. The crosses the branch land and unheard. The names are the depleted. Here, this section opens with the desolated riverside scene. The rats and the garbage surrounding the speaker, who is fishing in the musing on the king, my brother. The fire sermon, however, includes Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible, but your screen
Yeah,
sharing
actually,
has changed now.
sir, I have some network issue, so that's why, sir.
We are seeing your shared screen, but it is not the screen which you are supposed to share.
Just a minute, sir. Okay, now it's visible, sir.
Yes, it is visible. Yeah.
In the fourth,
In the fourth,
the
the
fourth
fourth
part, the
part, the
death
death
by
by
water.
water.
This
This
part
part
is the
is
shortest part.
now the fourth part, the part shortest of the section in the poem. This part describes a man, the Pahalbas, the Phoenician who has a date, the apparently by drawing. Here some lines of the fourth part. This line tells of some guy named the Pahalbas. Phoenicians in this one who been the killed by water. He has been the dead for he is dead by 2 weeks or a fortnight. The part number and the last part, the what the thunder says, the final section of the poem, opening with taken from the crucifixion of the Christ. The section starts like this line. These lines particular refers to the Mammon that has come death and the Christ. But before his rebirth on Easter Sunday, the scene then shifts to the gangs half foot away from Europe, where the thunder rumbles. In this poem, the thunder speaks these three words, Data, Dayadvam, and the Damayata. According to these three words, the fables, the thunder gives, sympathize, and the controls throughout the speech. Eliot launches into the meditation on each and aspect to the thunder. Here is the thank you. It's my presentation.
Okay, you can stop presenting now. Okay. Some rehearsal for the afternoon slot and for tomorrow also, so you can manage your devices in a proper way. Okay, and find a space get good network also. Okay? You also were sitting in a very dark space, so try to find the space where you get enough light on your face when you are making these are all the skills which are necessary. Now there is a better light than you were when you were making presentation. So all these things are necessary, skills that are to be learned when you make your presentations in online mode. Okay, the questions to Anjali shall be asked in chat. Yeah, put the questions in chat. And next presenter is Bhumika.
Yes, sir. Let me share my screen. My screen is visible.
Yes, it is visible. Yeah.
Okay. Very good morning, everyone. Today my topic is arts and symbolism from the paper 106. Uh, as we know that William Butler Yeats is regarded as one of the most important representative symbolists of the 20th century in English literature. So today we discuss about Yeats as a symbolist. William Butler Yeats was an Irish poet, dramatist, prose writer, and one of the foremost figures of 20th century literature, a pillar of the Irish literary establishment. And he received a Nobel Prize for Literature in 1923. He, uh, he became the first Irish writer. And first question as a symbolic poet for AIDS in our mind that why W.B. Yeats is considered as a symbolic poet. So in this answer, I want to say that because of the he was very influenced by the 19th century's French symbolist movement. It is the only reason behind his becoming of symbolic poet, and his symbolism was based upon the poetry of Blake, Shelley, and Rossetti. And if we talk about the symbolism in the literature of English, then the symbolism is a literary device that uses symbols and the words, people, marks, location, or abstract ideas to represent something beyond the literary meaning. It is the definition for symbolism in the English literature. Then, in the value of symbolic, there are three primary forms. Uh, this is ideological, comparative, and isomorphic. Ideological meaning is that such as religious and state symbols convey complex sets of beliefs and ideas that indicate the need to do. Comparative meaning is symbols are that just by estimating the similarity or dissimilarity, one thing that an another. Isomorphic means that similar in form and relation. Then symbols have two types of meaning too. That is denotative and connotative meaning. Denotative is that when you mean what you want to say in literary form, and connotation is created when you mean something else and something that might be initially in literary form. It means something extra thing is hidden the words. Then in Yeats' poetry, there are some very famous and major symbols of his poetry. We say we see in other slides. The major symbols is like the rose, the tower, the gyre, the wheel, the sword, the sea, the bird, tree, sun, moon, gold, silver, earth, and water. air, and the fire. These are the most famous symbols which Yeats uses in all most of his poems. And then we talk about the poem, the second coming. What type of symbols Yeats uses in this poem? This is the image of the poem Second Coming. There are the second coming of Jesus Christ. The second coming is written in 1919, and it is close of World War One. It's a violent and mesmerizing poem that outlines the end of an era and a coming great destruction. Its symbolism largely centers around this destruction and rebirth of Jesus Christ. And most analysis of this poem stem from this type of symbols. The first symbol of this poem, the second coming, is the falcon. Here is the image of how the falcon looks like. The symbol of falcon described in the second coming is symbolic of the human race, especially in modern times as it has become disconnected from its roots. The symbol of falcon, being unable to hear the falconer, could also represent what Yeats perceived as a collective loss of religious faith across the world. And the second symbol is the gyre. The gyre is the symbol in Yeats' poem, The Second Coming, is used to represent the swirling, turning landscape of life. And gyres appear in many of Yeats' poems. He uses this to represent the systems that make up life. The push pulls between freedom and control that spin together to create existence. So we can say that the gyre is the most famous and important symbol of Yeats' poetry. And the third symbol is the Sphinx. As we have discussed is the and rebirth. And symbolizes the pagan world that predicted the Christian era. This is typed the ancient Egyptian who built the actual Sphinx. The Sphinx rises up to slow toward in Bethlehem. And we conclude the topic with this that W.B. Yeats was one of the major symbolist poets of 20th century, and he also using the illusive imagery in the symbolic structure and throughout his career as a symbolist. And here is my references of this presentation. And thank you very much. And if you any have questions, also can ask me.
Yes, you can stop presenting now. And Yes, questions. Who is going to ask questions? Bhavyang and Anjali. Bhavyang, you can ask a question. Anjali, you can
Apart,
type your question.
apart from the symbolist, does yet have any other speciality?
Yes,
Hello.
apart from symbolist, Yeats also was a romantic poet. He wrote a very famous and most interesting romantic poetry also.
Okay, fine. Yes, Bhumika. Citations, you still need to work on citation. It is not only giving URL. Yeah? Bhavyang has given properly surname, name, the writer, and then the URL comes. So that is very important in citation also.
Yes,
Even
sir.
in your slides also you need to work. You gave a background image and then on that you imposed the thing, but it was not merging together with that. So you have to see that how you can sync your graphics in your presentation. It should not look very gaudy. The images which you use should be appropriate with what you are trying to make. It should not look very gaudy or unnecessarily kind of designs or fast colors are made. That should not look there. You should always make a good combination of a small image, bulleted points. That is always a good one image for symbolically representing what you want to say. It's always a good idea to do that, so that you can do. So some of the good images you have put, but how you make a square in between, that you need to rework also. And also speak little bit louder. Speak little bit louder, so your voice is clearly listened also. Okay, fine. The other things were good. The other points were good. You also brought some good symbols to study also from this falcon and sphinx and other things. Okay, fine. The next presenter is Chandni.
Yes, sir, I am audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Shall I present my screen? Hello. Hello.
Yes, still we are not able to see. Let us wait for some time.
Yes, sir.
No, your screen is still not visible. Yes, now it is.
Now,
Yes, yeah, yes. Now you can play your presentation and you can start.
okay, sir. Hello, everyone. I am Chandni
Yeah.
Pandya.
Play
Today I
your
am present.
presentation. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Today I am present critical study of
Yeah. Plus,
WBEX, the setting.
you have not played your presentation still. Yeah.
Sir, this one? Hello?
Yeah. Are you using from laptop?
Yes, sir.
So then I think you have shared in a different way. When you share, if you have selected a window while sharing, have you selected a window while sharing?
No, sir.
Then your entire screen or a tab, what you have done?
1 second, sir.
Because if you are doing window, then the full screen goes in another screen. We cannot see. You better do your entire screen. Select your entire screen. That will be easiest to. There are 3 features in the laptop when you make a presentation: a tab, a window, your entire screen.
Sir, I am choose the window.
You go for your entire screen. Because in window, you first have to play presentation and then select a window where presentation is being played. You will see 2 windows of it, and you have to select properly the proper window. Yet we are waiting, yet we are not getting.
Now?
Yes, now we are seeing the screen. Yes, now you play. Yeah.
I'm presenting.
No, yet not. We are not
Then
seeing the full screen. Have you started playing F5? F5 button?
no, no, no. No, sorry. I'm trying. Now?
No, still not.
I see my
You are seeing full screen on your laptop.
yes, sir.
Then have you shared your entire screen? I think you have shared tab again.
No, sir.
If you have shared
Now?
entire screen, then whatever you are seeing, we will see here. If it is entire screen, then whatever you see, we see it here. If you
Yes,
share
Daya.
tab, then it is a different.
Please click on the slide show. If F5 is not working, then please click on the slide show. Then your entire screen is visible.
I'm also tap on that.
Yes, now I think it is entire screen. Yes, open your presentation now.
Visible? Visible, sir?
Yes, your entire screen is, we are seeing desktop, presentation 1, presentation 2.
My presentation is not visible.
No, it is not visible. You,
Sir,
yeah, you're not doing rehearsal in advance. So while the show is going on, we have to try. That's why we keep on telling you that never
No,
have
sir.
overconfidence. Never ever. You have done 10 times everything. Then also don't have a overconfidence. Then also do rehearsal. You have done it 100 times. Then also do rehearsal. Remember this always, that never be in overconfidence that it is going to work. It may not work. So always do some rehearsal and practice in it. That is for everybody. Yeah? Everybody, you should in advance or early in the morning. When you work with technology, you have to be extra cautious. Even without technology, you have to be careful. Even when you're not working with technology, you always have to go for rehearsals and other things. Without that, you won't be able to see that you get the result, desired result you will never get in any work that you do if you will not do a proper rehearsal of everything.
Sir, I'm.
Okay, next is Daya. Then we'll come back to her afterward. Daya.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. For today's presentation, I am sharing my screen. Is my screen visible, sir?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Today's my topic is the Great Gatsby 1974 film versus the Great Gatsby 2013 film. So, The Great Gatsby is a novel by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and it is a tragedy, a real modernism, and social satire. The novel was published in 1925. The protagonist of this novel was Jay Gatsby, and the narrator of this novel was Nick Cave. About this novel, F. Scott Fitzgerald himself says that I look out at it and I think it is the most beautiful history in the world. It is the history of all aspiration, not just the American dream, but the human dream. And if I came at the end of it, that too is placed in the line of pioneers. Now we will see the film adaptation 1974 and 2013. The version 1974 was directed by Jeff Clayton and produced by David Merry from a screenplay by Francis Ford Coppola. And the film stars is Robert Redford in the title role of Jack Gatsby, along with Maya Farrow, Sam Waterston, Bruce Dern, Karen Black, Scott Wilson, and Lois Chiles, with Howard Da Silva, the actor who previously appeared in the version 1949, and the Robert Blossom and Edward Herrmann. And the another version is 2030, and it was co-written and directed by Baz Luhrmann and star Leonardo DiCaprio, and the actor Leonardo DiCaprio is the protagonist Jack Gatsby, with Tobey Maguire, Carey Mulligan, Joel Edgerton, Isla Fisher, Jason Clarke, Elizabeth Debicki, and Jack Thompson. And Jay served as exclusive producer. And filming took place from September to December of 2011 in Australia, with a $1,005 million net production budget. And this film follows the life and times of millionaire Jay Gatsby and his neighbor Nick Carraway, who recounts his encounter with Gatsby at the height of roaring 20s on Island. Now, if we see the first frame is from the movie, from the version 1974, where the actor is Carey Mulligan and Leonardo DiCaprio. That was played as a Jack Gatsby and Daisy. And another frame is from the movie 2030, and the actor was Maya Farrow and Robert Redford. So if we look at the both frame, we can say that instead of giving us a lover who never meant to be, Redford and Farrow gives us a flattering acquisition who were never really there. And in most of scenes, the pair do not appear to be under the impression that they are in the same movies. The another scene is the party. Baz Luhrmann party scene versus Jack Clayton party scene. That Fitzgerald has depicted the jazz age in the novel The Great Gatsby, and the air of damaged glamour that was peculiar to the jazz era is captured beautifully with lots of elegantly composed long shots of lavishly appointed rooms and grounds. When it comes to the big party scene, this is what we get: was elaborate costume, jitty, circus-like atmosphere, and whirlwind of camera angles, music, and dancing, and something resembling a scene from a Jaipur show. So obviously, Luhrmann was inspired to recreate that Jack Gatsby party. But was he inspired by the rest of the book, or was there a point in which he realized the rest of story translate very well into what feels like a stage musical? Not that there is other dance numbers and singing, just jazz track pumping in the background. But the movie feels campy and staged. Now, if we look at the looks the same, but Redford and Farrow so much more romantic. Both frame, we can see that the first frame is from 2013 movie, and the second one is from 1974. The scene where Nick invites Daisy for tea at Jay's request, and Leonardo DiCaprio is made to play the moment with far too much humor. And as Jay is now departing in the rain and coming back to the door soaking wet, where Robert Redford plays his anticipation and nervousness with subtle amusement. His belief that Daisy won't show even though it is still 5 minutes before her expected arrival is endearingly humorous but not played for laughs. Now the character of narrator Nick Carraway, and Nick is played by Sam Waterston in the 1974 version and Tobey Maguire in 2030 version. So Sam Waterston makes a fine fit for the key supporting role of Nick Carraway, the wide-eyed ordinary Joe who experiences a gradual loss of innocence as he gets to know his distant cousin and his next-door neighbor Gatsby. So the film's principal figure is not Gatsby but Nick, a classical and unreliable narrator. And here I would like to show one video that shows the comparison of the scene between both the movies. I am playing the video. Video is too long, so I am not sharing whole one. This is my reference. From that I have taken my content. Thank you everyone. Shall I stop presenting myself?
Yes, stop presenting. Well, so in your citation, you also have to, because you relied a lot on this video, which displayed the difference. So the video also should be cited. The video should also be put into the citation there. Okay. Otherwise, it was a good comparison between, and lots of similarities were seen in both the things. Yeah? Okay, questions? Chandni, Bhumika?
Yes, Daya. Hello.
Yes, Chan.
My question is, which character do you like the most, Jay Gatsby to Nick Carraway?
Okay. From the both character, I like the most is Nick Carraway, because Nick Carraway's character is more practical than other characters, and his character is more up to down than other characters in the novel and in the movie. And Nick Carraway seems to outside the action. He slowly moves to the forefront, becoming the important, and he becomes the vehicle of the novel. So I like the character most is Nick Carraway, the narrator of the novel.
Hello.
Yes,
Which movie is worth watching from these both versions, as your point of view?
From the both version, 1974 and 2030, I would like to say that the movie 2030 version is worth watching, because Baz Luhrmann has nicely presented the characters and this jazz age and party scene and all this. And we have seen already that movie 2030. I haven't watched the movie 1974. I have read many reviews about that, and from that I can say that the movie 2030 is worth watching. From the movie 1974.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, good question also in both the films also, but also well, we can have a question like if both the films are very similar, except for the things like costumes might change, the setting might change, because in 74 we were not having a very gaudy looking, very attractive settings, which is available in 21st century. Many things like camera movement also, like on a dining table, we have seen that camera is moving at the top. Now those are the advanced features of technology in cinematography, or in making a very affluent looking show. That is why the film becomes better. And one of the very interesting aspect of this novel and the film is this the affluence, the richness, the wealth which was overflowing in 1920s in America. So it becomes easy for the new filmmaker to display that. Maybe after 20 years, when somebody will make a film, then they perhaps will make better than 2013 also, so far as these all things are concerned. But our major concern or question will be like, how far the film version throws some more light on the novel, how it gives much deeper understanding of the novel, which one is giving a little bit deeper understanding of the character, the situation in which they are. That is very important to be seen in that also. So which filmmaker captures the nuances of the novel, nuances. Or sometimes we can also ask that something that was left out while reading the novel, something was left out while reading the novel. Is that being added by the director? Is that being added or highlighted by the director? And third thing that we can see is that if directors are making any manipulation or any addition into the novel, or they are trying to add something more to the original novel, are they modifying it to give more enrichment to the novel or not? So those can be important points when we compare two cinematic version adaptations or an adaptation with the novel also. Okay, fine. The next presenter is Hiral.
Yes, sir.
Hiral, your camera is still standing.
Yes, sir. I'm not able to.
Last time I suggested you that you keep rotated form.
Okay.
But it is still that last time also it was standing, even today it is standing. So in last presentation also we were seeing the same thing. Now again it is repeated. Yeah, okay, you do rehearsal. We are coming back to you. Still we are not seeing a proper screen. So you need to do rehearsal in what I am trying to tell. Okay, let us take another one by the time she gets ready. Jignesh?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible. You can start here.
And also, I think my screen is visible. So
yes.
So before the start of presenting here, the first question arises in our mind: why I have chosen this black slide? So because black is symbolically represent the darkness of the light, especially we are seeing in the woman. So my topic is that a feminist approach to the work of Virginia Woolf, Orlando, and Rooms of 101. So first question is that what is a feminism? Why we should have to read feminism? And feminism means to believe our idea that women should have to rights and opportunity to as a man is having. And if we can think into Hindi language, so Narivad. So Narivad means ऐसा विश्वास या सिद्धांत कि स्त्रियों को पुरुष के समान अधिकार और अवसर प्राप्त होना चाहिए. So here you can see biography of Virginia Woolf, was famous English writer, and her parents were social and artistic. This invite motivate Virginia Woolf to appreciate the art of writing. Here is a Virginia Woolf biography. She was a journalist as well a writer, and she made a great achievement. And she was homeschooled, but her family had rich, expensive family library in which Virginia Woolf could indulge herself in reading and writing. That's the point that she was not schooled because she was coming from the Victorian age, and I think there are several problem also. That's why I think women were not able to give her own idea that. And also later she grew up to be a feminist. She believed in the power of women. And here some works are Virginia Woolf, Orlando, A Room of 101, To the Lighthouse, and Miss Delaware. And some interesting quotes which I have found. Woman must have a money and a room of her own if she is to write a fiction. As a woman, no country. As a woman, my country is the whole world. If you do not tell the truth about yourself, you cannot tell it about other people. And also, for most of history, Anonymous was a woman, and the eyes of others, our prisons, their thoughts, our cages. Here you can see the Orlando. Orlando is a novel by Virginia Woolf in 1928, and also the book describes the adventures of poet who changed the sex from man and woman. Here, A Rooms of One's House is one of the essays by Virginia Woolf and first published in 20 October 1921. I would like to share with you that in Orlando there is a transform study of the man and woman when the protagonist character wearing the role of man at that time he has a more priority to get any job and any other kind of things. And after after he changed his sex into a woman, at that time also she was very facing so many problems, and also when she was a boy at that time, also the Queen Elizabeth gives priority to get a job and and also financial stability. And here is another one, the Virginia Woolf, Rooms of One's Own. So in this essay, we see that when she was giving some kind of imagination lecture. At that time, she has included that the sister of Shakespeare, and she was giving a imaginative kind of story, and when if Shakespeare was a woman, so or if Shakespeare was a woman, so I think he was not able to publish, and he was not famous, and a room of once oven or once oven in this. She tells that when any woman want to give her own self, so she must have a one room, and also she has a stability of financial condition, and some points which I think I would like to share. It depicts the reality of Victorian facts and truth in Orlando. It touches the important issue of self-knowledge and the truth of life, and a room for one's own. In this wolf prejudice, financial and educational disadvantage have inhibited women's creativity. Also, thank you so much. Here is my website.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Questions.
Yes. Hello, Jignesh.
Yes, you can ask me.
Okay. Um, as you have mentioned very good points about biography, and you have mentioned that Virginia Woolf has committed suicide. So, do you know how she has committed suicide?
Yes, I know that because we have already studied that Virginia Woolf killed herself through one stone in the river. So that's one of the reasons that Virginia Woolf uh, were suicide.
Okay, Jignesh, I would like to ask you a question that you have compared two novels as a feminist approach. So, for your point of view, which one is appropriate as a feminist reading, Orlando or one's own room?
I have studied both the novel, but I think one room so one is more appropriate for feminist reading. And also, I would like to give one example in our society. If anyone have a boy child, a birth of boy child or a girl child, so most of people, if they have a boy child, so they will give a panda kind of things, and if anyone have a daughter kind of child. So she maybe gives like a jalebi of kind of things. So that's the reality of life. And also, if we can compare that if uh, any woman is doing a graduation, any daughter is doing her graduation. So when as comparison to boy can easily take the laptop of and laptop of kind of things as well, big great mobiles. So this is the one of the reality of our life as we are seeing in our society. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. So the next presenter is Hiral or Chandani ready?
I'm
Hiran?
ready, sir.
Yeah, okay, fine. You can start then.
Okay, Daya is sharing my screen. Can you please share my screen, Daya? Your screen, Daya?
Yes, I am sharing my screen.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Myself, Viral Kashyap, and I'm presenting my paper on subject gender in Orlando biography. So, Orlando a biography is a novel by Virginia Woolf, first published on 11th October 1928. Orlando is set chiefly in England from the time of Elizabeth I. Next slide. How Virginia Woolf was inspired to write Orlando. Woolf was inspired to write Orlando when Sackville took her to Knoll to show her the place where she had grown up that had belonged to the Sackville family centuries, and as Sackville West weekly noted, she would have inherited if only she had been born male. Woolf focuses on gender as a main issue in the novel. Orlando doesn't have a fixed gender and shifts from male to female. Orlando notices how it is harder to be a female than to be a male because of the limitation imposed on female. But being a male is not perfect either, because males, as Orlando described them, and driven by the desire to climb the social ladder and are not able to openly show the emotion. The way the narrator describes the difference between the two gender is realistic ones, and she doesn't favor a gender to the determination of the other. Next. The determination of difference between the gender is a main theme in Orlando. Are man and woman really different? If so, why? Orlando's sex changes is a very important scene in the determining the answer to these questions. As Orlando wakes up as a woman, she looks at her body in a full-length mirror and composedly walks to her bath. She is not at all disconcerted by her change in gender because she feels no different than she did before. At first, she acts no differently either, but when she travels on board the English ship in woman's clothes, she immediately begins to feel the difference. The skirt that she is wearing and the way the people react to her make her feel and act different. What Woolf is suggesting here is that gender roles are not biological but social. Gender is concept imposed on people who live in society. When Orlando goes out into the night as a woman dressed as a man, she finds herself taking on traditional male mannerism. The point is that when society allows the freedom of gender neutrally, people will be more free as individuals to act according to their nature and personality. Next, uh, previous slide, previous. Okay. Uh, Previous. Okay. She is a woman or he is a man. So, sexuality of Orlando can be divided into three parts: womanly man, manly woman, or third is being. Next, the womanly man stage brings Orlando's life. Is Orlando begins with the emphasis on his sex, indicating the key issue is pertain to sexuality. Orlando is physically a man without doubt, but his masculinity is mingled with femininity. Next, manly woman. In the second stage, Orlando, learning how to act like a woman, does not seem to be bothered by his sudden change from one sex to other. Orlando adopts the strategy of cross-dressing or straddling between the world of two sexes. Next. Being. The third stage, which is called being, can be deemed as a stage of multiple sexuality as well inner combination of masculinity and femininity. Next. Orlando, he or she vacillate between two sexes. He may be a physically man, but inside his mind could be the opposite of surface, and vice versa. Orlando is simply a being, the union of man and woman. Here are my references. Thank you.
Okay, so need to work on your references. Otherwise, it was references, citations. We are going to do one workshop in this semester for better citations. In next semester, you have one paper also on research methodology, wherein we will the questions to her.
May I?
Yes.
My question is Orlando immortal?
Orlando is an immortal warrior and adventurer who changes sex involuntarily as years passes. Next.
Yes, Hiran. You have nicely presented Orlando as a biography. And from that, can you say that Orlando is a satire?
Yes, it is. It is satirizing the society and because only we can make someone feel awkward. So he was not feeling awkward before he came to the public when he was dressing differently. So it is satirizing the people and the society.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Chandni, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, so you can start. And by the time she is sharing her screen, let me make this announcement that we have changed the link. New link is shared in email also and in WhatsApp also. We have named it New Link 2. New Link 2. So in the next slot, you should join this New Link 2 for this, because in that we have a recording feature available. Yes, Chandni, you can start. Yes, it is visible. You are presenting, but your presentation screen is still not visible. Yes.
Now is visible?
Not yet. We are seeing that you are presenting the screen, but what you are presenting is not visible. Yes, now screen is visible. We are seeing your presentation one folder is open. Presentation folder is open.
Okay, sir. I'll check. Now?
Yeah, open your presentation. We are not able to see whether you have opened the presentation or not. We are seeing folder.
Yes, sir, I opened, but I don't know. Bhavyan, please share my screen. Hello?
Hi, yes, yeah. Yes, now it is visible. You can, you can now start, yeah.
Okay, sir.
Again, it has changed. Yes, Bhavya, you have to show that slide where you... When you are sharing your PPT from laptop, at that time, if you are sharing through window, then you have to see that there are two windows automatically made of PPT. Yes, now you can start, Chandni.
Okay, sir. Hello, everyone. I am Chandni Pandya. Today I am present critical study of W.B. Yeats' The Second Coming, paper number 106, the 20th century literature from 1908 to World War II. Next. Next. William Butler Yeats,
He was born in Dublin, Ireland in 1865. He was poet, playwright, and philosopher. He got Nobel Prize for Literature in 1923. He was well known for symbolism employed in his poetry. Next. Introduction. The Second Coming soon after the end of World War One, known at the time as the Great War and the War to End All Wars, it was also not long since the Easter Rising in Ireland, a rebellion that was brutally suppressed and the topic of Yeats's earlier poem Easter 1960 and the Russian Revolution of 1917. Next. Central symbol gyre, conical shape consisting of series of ever-widening connected circles, repeating trends of history, psychological development, subjectivity versus objectivity, life versus death. An age is an age in a history spread its ever-widening influence until the spans its force and ends. Each period is 20, 200 years. Beginning of each new gyre bring about chose and the destruction of the old. Poem describes current historical period, world on the brink of the some apocalyptic revelation. Next. Introductory notes. Poem suggests that the second coming of Christ instead of bring about good will bring about a state of anarchy on earth. Title derived from Bible Matthew 24 and St. John description of beast of the apocalypse in Revelation. In stanza 1, condition present in the world anarchy is falling apart. In stanza 2, surmise that this condition foretell of a monstrous second coming. Next. Turning and turning in widening gyre, things fall apart, the center cannot hold, main anarchy is used upon the world. In this stanza, in the system, this gyre is accompanied by the definition that which is minimum and for its widest which may century of stony sleep. Next slide. The blood demate is used and everywhere. The ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the roast are full of passionate intensity. The blood reference to the blood-filled sense of elevation. The ceremony is a lack of experience, goodness, and vulnerability. The best people consider intellectual head think but don't do, and worst people move body act without thinking. They worst people carry out their deeds with great vigor and enthusiasm. The technology progressing beyond the mankind ability to control it in the time that yet speaks of the rulers of the world were caught up in imperialism and expanding circle of power to the point where they would do almost anything to accomplish their goals. Next. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things apart the center cannot hold when anarchy is used upon the world. In this stanza, the falcon in the second line, turning and turning in the widening gyre, represent the gyres or ones that yet refers to his book. This governs the progression of time and human race and can be represented by the 28 phases of the moon. 2000 years ago was the beginning of the new cycle. Christ was born exactly the right time to have a perfect soul, and now we reach the end of cycle, nearing the end of 28 phase about to start again. Next. Conclusion. The first stanza of the second coming is powerful description of apocalypse, opening the ideable image of the falcon circling ever higher in ever widening spiral. So far there, The falcon cannot hear the falconer. The centrifugal impacts described by those circles in the air tends to choose in disintegration. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold, and the more than chose the disintegration to war the blood demetied to fundamental doubt, the best lack of conviction, and to rule of misguided, even the worst are full of passionate intensity. Next. Here is my work citation.
Yeah, quite well done. Citations is quite well done. Yeah, here, okay, alphabetically, and it is more appropriate here. This is how all should also follow the method of citation. Yeah. Okay. Yes. The questions to Chandni shall be put in the chat, and the last presentation of the day is Khushbu. Yes, Khushbu. Are you ready, Khushbu?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Yours is
sir.
the last. Yeah, okay. Yes, you can start now. Yes, Khushbu. Hello. Have you started speaking? Yeah, Khushbu.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, visible. Now you can start. Yeah.
Sir, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is visible. Yeah, start. Yeah. Yes, it is visible. Are you not able to listen us?
Yes, sir. Now I am able to listen.
Okay, yeah, start your presentation.
Okay. My today's topic of the presentation is Virginia Woolf's Orlando and queer theory. First of all, let's understand what is the meaning of the word queer. The origins of the term queer are ambiguous, and it is assumed that the term entered into English in the 16th century from German, where it is originally meant strange, odd, peculiar. And in the late 19th and early 20th century, the expression was used as slang or pejorative for homosexuals. Later, by the late 1980s, however, some gay people began to deliberately use the word queer in place of gay or homosexual in an attempt by using the word positively to deprive it of its negative power. Origins of the queer theory. It has its origins in gay and lesbian studies as well as in women's studies. Both lesbian and gay studies began as liberation movements in the late 1960s and 70s, but eventually were incompatible to each other. Gays often consider themselves as males, refuting the need of women, hence exhibiting misogynist temperament. Later on, with the emergence of a broader inclusive theory, they adopted a queer identity, realizing the purpose they share as oppressed minorities. Definitions. An LGBT academic and fiction author, Anna Mary Jago's, in her book entitled Queer Theory and Introduction, states queer focuses on mismatches between sex, gender, and desire unknown to many queer is in association with more than just gay and lesbian, but also cross-dressing, which is particularly seen in this novel Orlando, hermaphroditism, and gender ambiguity and gender corrective surgery. Queer thus widens its peripheries to incorporate any kind of sexual activity or identity which is deviate to heteronormative model of society. Post-structuralist in nature. Queer theory is greatly influenced by post-structuralist and deconstructive ideas of Derrida and Foucault. Derrida, Foucault, and other post-structuralists challenged the notion of a systematic and stable structure which incorporates the center serving as the organizer and regulator of the structure. Inspired by the post-structuralist tenets, queer theorists interrogated the stable structure of identity. Here are the two interesting quotes by Virginia Woolf. Then Virginia Woolf's Orlando, a biography. The story of Orlando spans over 300 years from 1588 to 1928 in the novel. During this time, Orlando ages only 36 years and changes gender from a man to a woman. Here the genre is fictional biography, and a work of this we can see that a work of queer life writing, writing about the self or the individual. That is a quote by Marlene Kadar. Life writing should encourage the reader to develop and foster his or her self-consciousness. And in this novel, we see that the queer theory and in reference to the cross-dressing in Orlando occurs fairly frequently, and because they are so alike underneath their clothes, the genders should be allowed more freedom in their actions. Orlando, a work of traditional writing. As quoted by Marlene Kadar, the pretend to be absent from the text means the biographer or the author has to be present in the text. Where Orlando's life truly established itself was a work of life writing in the middle ground between the extraordinary and the mundane. Means it is not too much very special and not very mediocre also, but of the middle type. Orlando as a queer life writing, transgender. As Pamela Kirk explains, it configures in life writing narratives not only notions of gender but also of time, identity, and history. Approximately 300 years have first we have to see that time. Then approximately 300 years have passed in total since the novel began with Orlando as a young boy, and those years do not come to a close with the last page. In Changing Between Dresses and Suits, Orlando explores how our gender is constituted through the freedoms and restrictions of our clothes. History does not frame the text. Indeed, Woolf uses changes in Orlando's identity to frame history. So one quote which is said by Queen Elizabeth to Orlando is that do not fade, do not wither, do not grow old. Woolf addressed Orlando to her female lover, the poet and bisexual socialist Rita Sackville West. She was the model for the androgynous Lord Orlando in what has been described as the longest love letter in the world. So with this we can say that it is related to queer theory and it is a homosexual type of relationship. And these are some scenes from the film Vita and Virginia. And these are my citations. Thank you, sir.
Okay, well cited and well presented. Also, you also referred to Pamela Kogi's presentation. This citation also in the text. That is also a good point to see there. Okay, we can take one question to her. One question who can ask. I think Aditi, Anjali, Aditi. No, I think previous one. No? Hiral and Jignesh. Yeah. Okay, Hiral or Jignesh. Yes, Khushbu, you can stop presenting now. And yes. Who is asking question to her?
Hello, Khushbu. Can you define that Orlando as a queer of writing in short form?
Yes, Orlando has some elements of queer writing. We can see that Orlando has dressing. Orlando changes the dress as he changes his gender from man to woman. So after he becomes a woman, he wears the clothes of woman. So in cross dressing, we can see that the characters of queer are seen in this novel. And also, this novel is a love letter to White Sackville. So the novel also is type of homosexual relationship, and queer theory is related to it.
Thank you.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So to sum up today's day, we can say that all of you did good work, but still slightly, if you want to improve from this, either in today afternoon, you won't be able to improve a lot because you might have already decided your topic and also your PPT might be prepared for the afternoon slot. But tomorrow or even for the next semester, then few points you can keep in mind. Many of you are still reading the slides, so that you can try to see that slides are for the audience. Slides are not for you. So see that how you can think of this. See, here in online, it is still okay that if I'm reading slides, then it doesn't make a huge difference. But if you are making a presentation offline, in classroom or on any of the stage, then if you will constantly keep on reading the slide, then you will not have eye contact with the audience. Here it is okay, as if you are reading, then also you can have the slight eye contact if you keep on looking in a camera. But that habit is not a good habit. It's not a good habit. So you have to be careful that if you will make offline presentation, then you will be handicapped. You will be handicapped. You won't be able to look in the eyes of the audience. You will constantly require a slide to read. So try to make that habit that slides are there, but still you can make your presentation as orally as possible, that you can do. Another important point, try to go out of the text. The text is in your syllabus. You are taking a poem or a novel, but if you will do only textual reading, then it is still not good. Go out of the text. Try to compare with another literary text or a cinematic version, something additional you have to do. So this is the space to go out of syllabus. Try to go out of syllabus. Don't confine yourself within syllabus. Don't confine yourself within the syllabus. And even if you will do an excellent study of the text or a poem or a novel that you have taken, but still you are still within the text only, within the syllabus. Explore this space to go out of the syllabus and try to connect this with another literary text, another cinematic version, another film, or simple point which we want to make here is that presentations and assignment is a space where you are supposed to go out of syllabus, connect your syllabus with something that is outside and try to explore those things. So make use of this for that. Otherwise, it will become more ritualistic. The same thing that is there in the text, which is available on internet. You can easily download something. You can make your slides and you can present this thing. But you are not connecting that dot with something else. Knowledge creation is all about connecting dots. So how well you connect a dot which is in your syllabus with something outside, and then you can display your understanding of that topic, that concept in a better way also. So the way Daya has done that, comparing two cinematic adaptation, that was a good point to go beyond and see that if you watch both the films and do your own analysis, it is still better, rather than taking the analysis that is done by somebody. Somebody has done, you can take help of that. But if you do your own analysis and try to display your own understanding, then it is still a better way of looking at those things also there. Okay? By and large, it was good. Aditi, Anjali, you did good. Bhavyang also, who presented very well. Bhumika, Chandani, Hiral, both of you just do rehearsal for the afternoon slot, so we don't waste our time in setting our devices. And Khushbu also, a good point about queer theory was taken by Khushbu. Yes, good point about queer theory was taken. So a historical background of queer theory was given. That was a good point, which we have in semester 3 also, queer theory. So that will help the understanding of Orlando also. Okay? And Jignesh also did well with trying to connect with the color combination which is used in the slides also. Okay. Okay, fine. So we are meeting again after the second slot according to our time schedule. I think at 12:30. At 12:30 we are meeting again for our next presentation. Right now we are ending our this slot here. Okay?